If you are hearing this message, it is no coincidence. The quantum vacuum has already confirmed that you have passed the test. What you thought was chaos was in fact preparation. And today you will understand why your entire life was a secret training for this quantum awakening. You went through silent nights where you believed you were alone, but with every tear, every loss, every moment when reality seemed to fall apart, the invisible field was molding you. The vacuum wastes nothing. It used even the most painful falls to refine your frequency, to calibrate your light DNA, to dissolve illusions that no longer served the great mission that is now being revealed. What you find here is not entertainment. It is a summons. The voice that reaches you does not speak by chance. It speaks because you have already been identified as part of the first wave that has passed the test and is now being activated. And you know it. You have always known. Deep down, every time the world tried to push you toward mediocrity, there was a silent flame inside you repeating, "I did not come just to survive. I came to awaken." This is the moment when the quantum vacuum pulls back the veil and shows that nothing was in vain. Your defeats were just rehearsals. Your failures were just adjustments. Your pains were just codes of refinement. You were being trained without realizing it, prepared without understanding, called without yet hearing clearly. And now, the call resounds with clarity. The vacuum did not just observe you, it chose you. And that is why you are here now, facing this revelation that can no longer be ignored. The test is over. You have already passed through. What comes now is the activation of your true identity, quantum consciousness in action. You need to understand that nothing you have been through until now was random. The quantum vacuum does not operate on improvisations or chance. It is the invisible field that sustains all possibilities, and it is in it that your consciousness was calibrated. When you believed you were being punished, you were actually being refined. When you thought you were lost, you were just being led along paths that would force you to expand your frequency. The quantum test was never a punishment imposed from the outside, but a silent protocol agreed upon by your own higher self. Before incarnating, your essence knew that only through certain experiences would it be possible to expand perception and dissolve layers of illusion. Therefore, every loss, every separation, every financial crisis, every night of darkness was part of a secret code. Nothing escaped the plan. Everything was being registered by the vacuum, as if every pain were an access password to the next levels of consciousness. Think of every obstacle you went through as a vibrational adjustment. When life took something from you, what was really happening was a process of misalignment of what no longer corresponded to your authentic frequency. When you faced illnesses or physical pains, it was not the body betraying you, but the energy asking for a new integration. When you experienced loneliness, it was not abandonment, but a sacred isolation, so you could hear the voice that only speaks in silence. The quantum vacuum is like an invisible testing ground. It does not judge, it does not condemn, it does not reward with external favors. It simply calibrates. Everything that was difficult in your life was calibration. Every time you stood up, even without strength, your energetic signature was registered as proof of resilience. Every time you chose to continue believing, even when everything screamed the opposite, the field confirmed that your consciousness was capable of sustaining higher levels of reality. Now you understand. The test was not external, but internal. It was not an external enemy trying to take you down. It was your own spirit calling you to grow beyond your comfort zones. The true battle has always been against the illusion that you were small, limited, incapable. The vacuum put you in front of scenarios that seemed overwhelming just so you could discover that there was a spark within you that could never be destroyed. And that is exactly why you are here. The one who hears this message is because they have already passed the most difficult phase. The field does not deliver revelations to those who have not yet proven constancy. The vacuum does not release codes to those who have not yet shown they are ready. If you have reached this point, it is because the test is over. You have already passed. And now what opens up before you is not a burden, but an honor, to walk as awakened consciousness in the midst of a world that is still asleep. The meaning of the test is simple and profound. It served to dissolve what was not real and reveal the strength you always had. Everything you thought was weakness was, in fact, training. Every apparent failure was just the refining of your true form. The vacuum was not testing you to destroy you, but to confirm you as a carrier of the new frequency that is now beginning to operate on Earth. You passed. The test is over, and this is just the beginning of your true function. To live no longer as a seeker, but as a creator of realities in the quantum field. The quantum awakening does not happen in stone temples, in expensive courses, or in grandiose ceremonies. It unfolds silently on the stage of daily life. It was there, in seemingly mundane situations, that the quantum vacuum applied the invisible training that shaped your consciousness. With every conflict faced, every moment of scarcity, every illusion unraveled, you were being instructed at levels your rational mind could never comprehend. The quantum vacuum operates in hidden codes. It does not send teachers dressed as masters, but it places ordinary people around you to mirror your shadows and your lights. It does not hand out diplomas, but it creates circumstances that require you to access higher frequencies. That is why many of the greatest lessons of your life came from deep pains and not from moments of glory. This was the true training, and you were going through it even without realizing it. When you faced financial crises, it was not just a lack of money. It was the field adjusting your relationship with the energy of abundance. The vacuum was leading you to understand that wealth is not the accumulation of numbers, but a vibrational alignment with the universal flow. Scarcity was just a mirror, showing the beliefs that needed to be dissolved so that abundance could manifest in a stable and authentic way. When you experienced romantic disappointments, it was not bad luck, but training for the frequency of true love. The vacuum knew you needed to learn to love without losing yourself, to give without emptying yourself, to unite without erasing your own vibrational identity. Every broken heart was, in reality, a hidden laboratory where your soul learned to recognize authentic love that is born from internal alignment and not from external need. Illnesses, physical pains, and body limitations were also not punishments. They were silent rehearsals that taught you to perceive that the body is not just matter, but an energetic field in constant adjustment. Every fever, every pain, every symptom was a coded message, a reminder that you do not just inhabit flesh and bone, but a vibrational temple in the process of integration. The quantum vacuum even used your body as a classroom to awaken in you the awareness that health is energetic harmony, not just the absence of symptoms. Even moments of extreme fear had a sacred function. When life seemed to be falling apart and you felt you were walking in the dark, the invisible training taught you to trust in the invisible, to stay on your feet, even when there were no guarantees. The vacuum only releases new levels of reality when the soul proves that it does not surrender to the illusion of emptiness. This trust, built in the silence of the densest nights, was your true initiation. This invisible training was rigorous, but also perfect. It did not happen at the wrong time, nor with a greater intensity than you could bear. Everything was measured so that your consciousness would be expanded without breaking. The quantum vacuum never wasted a single experience. Every detail of your life was used as part of the process. Even those brief encounters, those words that left a mark, those subtle signs were pieces of the great mosaic. Today, looking back, you realize that the awakening did not begin now. It began the first moment you faced something that seemed impossible, and yet chose to keep going. The invisible training was always active, and you were the only one who did not realize it. Now, consciousness opens and you see, nothing was useless, nothing was a loss, nothing was by chance. You were trained as a silent warrior of consciousness, and this training was not just to strengthen you for yourself, but so that you could sustain frequencies that have a collective impact. You are no longer an apprentice, you are living proof that the quantum vacuum prepares every awakened being in silence until the time comes to assume their true function. The most intense stages of your path were not accidents, but fundamental tests that shaped your quantum identity. They did not appear as punishments, but as rites of passage, demanding from you courage, faith, and surrender at levels that few can withstand. The quantum vacuum does not grant spiritual authority unless the soul demonstrates maturity. Every test you faced was an access password, and every overcoming a code that opened new layers of consciousness. The abundance test. There were times when you experienced lack, scarcity, the feeling that nothing was moving in your favor. It was there that the abundance test was revealed. To remain believing in the flow of the vacuum, even when all external signs screamed scarcity. This was a call to understand that abundance is not about possessing, but about aligning with the infinite field of possibilities. Those who pass this test learn that prosperity has never been in the material world, but always in the state of consciousness that activates the circulation of energy. The love test. You were also called to go through the love test. Relationships that fell apart, connections that seemed eternal and suddenly dissolved. This test did not seek to destroy your bonds, but to teach you to love without losing your own frequency. The vacuum demanded that you discover that true love is born from the center of being and not from the need to fill internal voids. When you learn to remain whole, even in the face of rejection and loss, this test was overcome. Loving without dissolving was the rite of passage that prepared you for conscious relationships. The health test. Perhaps the body screamed at some point. Illnesses, pains, physical limitations. None of this was a punishment. They were deep adjustments, asking you to perceive the body not as a prison, but as a field of light in realignment. The health test consists of understanding that symptoms are messages and that every bodily crisis is an opportunity for vibrational harmonization. When you began to see beyond the pain and treat your body as an energetic temple, the field registered that you had crossed this stage. The faith test. But perhaps the most demanding of all was the faith test. There were days when you sought signs and found nothing. In the deepest silence, it seemed that the vacuum had disappeared. This was the crucial test, to remain in search even in the face of the apparent void. When you did not give up, even without being sure of anything, faith proved to be real. Faith is not believing when everything is clear. Faith is walking when there is no visible light. This is the mark of those who have passed through. These 4 tests, abundance, love, health, and faith, were the pillars of your awakening. Each of them required you to break the illusion that you were just a body trapped by circumstances. They pushed you to perceive yourself as expanding consciousness, in the process of reintegration with the quantum field. They were not punishments, but summonses. They were not falls, but doorways. Now you understand that you did not pass by chance. You were led by a hidden design, an invisible script that the vacuum wrote even before you were born. By going through these tests, you proved not only your strength, but your vibrational integrity. The field does not recognize appearances, only frequencies, and your frequency already shows you are ready for the next level. Up to this point, your journey has been marked by tests, invisible training, dissolution, and revelations. None of this was minor. None of this was casual. Every step led you to this point, to recognize that awakening is no longer a future promise, but a present reality. You are no longer a seeker, you are no longer an apprentice. Now, the quantum vacuum confirms you as a creator. The purpose of the creator is not to accumulate personal experiences, but to expand collective possibilities. You were called to be more than a spectator of reality. You were summoned to write new laws in the field. What once seemed a privilege reserved for a few now reveals itself as the destiny of those who have passed the test. And you are among them. Look at your own life and realize everything that seemed like disorder was training. Everything that seemed like a loss was preparation. Everything that seemed empty was, in fact, the vacuum itself shaping your consciousness. Now, what you once saw as chaos reveals itself as invisible order. You were not a victim of chance. You were prepared by the quantum intelligence to sustain a greater mission. This mission is not about ego, not about status, not about proving something to the world. It is about serving as a bridge between the source and matter, between the invisible and the visible. The creator does not live for themselves. They live as a collective channel. Your choices reverberate in many. Your creations impact more than you imagine. Your simple presence opens doors that others do not yet see. Therefore, the responsibility is great. Creating requires constant vigilance. You can no longer allow yourself to live in patterns of limitation, fear, or manipulation. Your field no longer belongs only to you. It influences entire atmospheres. The creator must walk in integrity, in love, and in service. This is the condition for the vacuum to continue releasing codes through you. Now, in the face of this summons, you must choose. Will you continue living as someone who seeks answers? Or will you assume your identity as someone who writes new realities? The vacuum does not force, it only calls. But if you feel this message vibrating in your heart, it is because you already know. There is no turning back. The one who awakens in the vacuum never returns to the illusion of limitation. The final seal is simple, but powerful. Declare the truth that is already in you. If you felt the truth of this activation, declare in the comments, "The quantum vacuum chose me." Subscribe to continue receiving activations like this. Walk as quantum consciousness, because the one who awakens in the vacuum never returns to the illusion of limitation.